my delicious co-creators. Lilou here on the Juicy Living Tour Europe. Today I'm in Reims in France with one of the speakers here at this Congress of Quantic Planet. Thank you for being here and taking the time to speak also with us for all the people, all the juicy co-creators out there that don't have the chance to meet you in person and not being here. So thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So I'm very interested in your background. Could you tell us what got you to be here, one of the speakers at this quantum therapy event?
Well, you know, I think I'm regarded as one of the pioneers of body-mind medicine. I started doing this work after a revelation that I had that my work was to heal with love in the mid-'70s. And I was in a busy practice in San Francisco, and in a way, Spirit came to me and said, your work is to heal with love.
You got that in the moment, in a second?
I got that during a deep meditation. I was in a room by myself. It was dark, and suddenly it seemed like somebody turned on the lights. So I opened my eyes, and the room was still dark. And then I closed my eyes again, and there was this inner luminosity. And then I heard a voice which said, your work is to heal with love. But I say voice, but it was so profound. It was so awesome. And, hair stood up in the back of my neck. Tears started to roll down my cheeks. And then I said, oh, so I'm worthy. And it said, you're no more or less worthy than anyone else. Your work is to heal with love. And I knew it was true. I didn't know what it meant. And that's how I came to be here, because I started to explore eventually what healing meant and what love meant.
And can we measure love? Can we measure the impact of... I know HeartMath has done a lot of studies, but did you do your own research?
I did my own research, and as a consequence of the research I did, which was actually done before HeartMath got involved in the research, they contacted me. They had read my book, and they said, you're doing what we're doing, please join us. So I became a member of their scientific advisory board for 6 years, and so I did research with them. And when I started doing the DNA research that I eventually did, they did the measurements on me, and I'll be demonstrating some of the measurements that were taken at HeartMath when I enter into states of coherent love. In other words, there's a way of electromagnetically measuring when you're in a state of expanded coherent love.
And can we be in that state in regular life, or do we need to be in deep meditation to reach it? Or is it more and more possible for you to do that now ongoingly during the day as well?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. I think if you're conscious of the fact that you can train yourself, then you can stay in that state. There are some people who spontaneously remain in that state. And then there are people who come and go from that state. So we have quite a spectrum.
There's not one process for all.
Right, it's different for different people. But one of the things I intend to be sharing today is that there are portals that you can enter these states through. And today I'll be focusing on the heart portal, that opening, that heart space that opens us to expanded awareness.
Well, tell us more now about that. We're getting in there. We want to hear more about that. I guess, don't you want to hear more about it? This heart portal, what makes it open up, and why do you call it a portal?
Okay, I call it a portal because although what we're referring to is consciousness itself, we don't always have access to it, as you just mentioned. Are we in this state all the time? Well, we're not for most people. We have to consciously choose to enter into this portal. So how to do that? And one of the things that that I learned before I entered into a relationship with HeartMath was that there were 3 easy steps to entering this portal. One is to simply shift your attention from wherever it is to the center of your chest, your energetic heart. Step 2, breathe in and out through this energetic heart as if you're breathing through the heart. you know. And then step 3, focus on something that makes you feel good. Focus on a feeling that opens your heart. Now, if you can bring in and recall something loving, and most people can, then you do that. Or a feeling of gratitude, or even forgiveness, or caring, or appreciation. These are all frequency bands of love. And when you do that, the entire electromagnetic energy of the body shifts into what we call a state of coherence. So
it's like all of a sudden everything for the body makes sense and is working at its optimum state?
Yes. What happens is that there's the energy of the heart is the strongest energy in the body. And what it does is it entrains these other energy centers called oscillators in the brain that control breath and pulse, and also in the solar plexus, and in several other areas of the body, and they all become entrained to the energy of the heart. So we become an entirely coherent human body. We become like a human laser. And something interesting happens when the energy of the body is coherent that way. The power is multiplied. It's squared. So the energy of coherent love is much more powerful than the energy of, say, hate or fear, which are based on the illusion of separation, which
can feel so strong.
Doesn't exist.
But it can feel so strong, though, in our body. When we feel it, it feels so much more, of course, devastating or destructive than love. And love is this soft, gentle, yet powerful. So how do you... both are powerful then, it's just a different power.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a power based on an illusion. And that's why it's not sustained. Now, if you're so angry and then you go out and you act on that anger, then it'll be sustained in terms of the impact that you've directed. But the anger itself and the hate itself is not based upon a truth. That's the point. And while love is based on the underlying awareness and felt sense of oneness or unity.
Can love also be very fast? Can the response of the consequences of love can be as fast as the anger and when we start to act on it? Can it be as impactful in that state? Even more?
More impactful. More impactful.
It's not a long-term thing.
Yeah, I'm reminded of a story. There's a friend of mine who was a student of a saint named Bawa in Sri Lanka, and he was an attorney from Philadelphia, and he was spending time with him, and he was sitting in the front, and Bawa was up on a pedestal, and he's a very old man. His great-grandparents remembered him when they were young, and they said that he was 140 years old. I went and visited him myself. So apparently, and this is, I guess, a first-hand report, some man comes running in, disheveled and angry, and starts running at Bawa with a knife. I'm going to kill you, And this friend of mine, he was going to get up and jump him, and Bawa was just sitting there, and the man came up to him, and Bawa opened his shirt and pulled his neck, he exposed his neck, and he said, "My brother, may the taking of this life bring your soul the peace that it seeks." And he just, exposed his neck, and the fellow just stopped and dropped his knife, fell down on his knees, started crying and sobbing. And then he said, "My brother, go home, wash up, and come back." And of course, he became a disciple. It's a true story. So, what about this power of love? This was not only the power of a coherent love, it was a coherent love that was totally in alignment with source. There was no separation between Bawa and this man from Bawa's perspective and from the perspective of the divine.
And we all have access to that. We all have this access of being the divine.
Inherent nature. See, because loving consciousness is our inherent nature. I mean, it's the recognition, it's the felt sense of oneness. There is only one. Appearing as many, appearing as a multiplicity, appearing as many forms. But the forms arise from the one source, and then they exist, and then they subside. So we create suffering when we become attached to the forms, or we resist the arising of the forms. So there are different portals to this. That's what I was saying. One portal is to dive into whatever it is that's arising and go back to the source of what's arising, and you find that it's made of consciousness. There is nothing there, and there's no one to whom it's arising. So this sounds rather vague, but in my seminars and workshops, this is where we lead people, and this is what they realize.
So do you also speak of the diseases and the reasons why we have those diseases? Is that then that the love is not entering anymore and flowing freely, or what is your understanding of why we have those in our lives?
Well, when I started to explore healing with love, in my practice, actually, with select patients, I came to realize that most illnesses and all suffering and distress came from a sense, perceived sense of separation. You know, a separation of one part of ourselves from another that was too painful to hold in consciousness, because something happened either very early in life, a critical incident, or when we were in our mother's womb. And our mother, whatever she was feeling about her maybe inadequacy of carrying the pregnancy, some issue with regard to the relationship, cultural, societal, religious influences, all at a pre-verbal level went into the fetus, the developing embryo, fetus, and baby. And the baby just started to assume that all of this was what it was, because there was no separation between mother and baby. There was an entanglement in the womb.
Quantum entanglement.
Quantum entanglement between mother and baby. And also picking up what the father was feeling, you know. So all these collective influences and intrauterine influences had an impact on this baby. And when it was born, it came into the world, or again, reinforced by critical incidents when it was very young, that there's something wrong with me. I'm not okay just the way I am. There's something wrong with me. Or, father wanted a boy and I'm a girl, so I'm a mistake. Or parents weren't ready to have a baby and suddenly they did, or they were considering terminating the pregnancy. All of these things, as we do more healing work with people, all of this comes out as subconscious or unconscious beliefs, again, that create a sense of separation of one part of ourselves from another.
Because the memory, most of the time, we don't go back, most people don't go back more than their third birthday or something like that. But do you go even in hypnotic state, or is it subconscious?
It's subconscious, it may be unconscious, but it exists. It exists. And you can go back using a process that I developed. I call it the tracing process. You can go back to a time even during the time that you were in your mother's womb. You can even go back to the moment of conception. You can even go back before that.
On the soul level, when you chose?
When you chose to come in. And all of these situations, I've explored in some detail. So
You verified it, and you were able to build cases of it.
well, yeah, I haven't done it in a scientific way because, I'm doing healing work with people, and I wasn't there to prove anything other than to prove to myself that this works. So I did this work, and when you go back to a core issue, and the person can then see what's happening at that very deep level, they can choose to release it. And especially what's deeply buried is the emotion that's associated with the memory. It could be in subconscious or unconscious memory, but there's an emotion or energy associated with that. And when you activate the emotion that comes up with that issue, see, it's a fractal that comes up of the original situation. You may not even get back to the original situation, but everything is a fractal of everything else associated with this core issue. So you just have to touch the fractal. It's a holographic fractal. So if you change any part of that holographic fractal, you'll change the whole. And what we're interested in...
Change your story.
Well, and the story, yeah, as well.
The future.
That's right. Well, what we're interested in when we want to change a memory is we don't want to forget necessarily what happened. We just want to strip the charge from it. So you can remember it. There could be a value to remembering it, because then you see somebody else who has a similar issue, say, I had that issue, but I no longer have the charge on it. So it doesn't distort my view, my perception of reality. And so now modern neurologic explorations are demonstrating how this works very well.
How do you deal with people that have a certain numbness towards an event and cannot really even feel the emotions of it to release it?
Yeah, and that's a very good question. There are some tricks to dealing with numbness. One way of dealing with numbness is to say, how does it feel not to feel?
And then there's the pain that is on,
So how does it feel not to feel? And then if you were to feel, what would you feel? Or you could say, if that part of your body were to feel, what would it say? So there are different ways of teasing out the information, because obviously the numbness is covering a pain that's too deep for that person to want to share at the present time. But there are ways of getting to that, and sometimes it's necessary to make a suggestion. Somebody, you can say, whatever the situation is, if it's anger, you can suggest that underneath most anger is sadness, for example. Just an example. And underneath sadness is loss. So what was lost? And then the tears come, and you've followed that thread back. So there are ways, techniques for dealing with that. But the important thing is that whatever comes up, you can release it energetically, especially if you activate the feelings. If you can activate the feeling, there's a release of hormones in the body, usually cortisol and adrenaline. And again, the recent research on memory reveals that short-term memory is converted to the long-term memory when there are hormones associated with that, hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. So, for example, when something's going on, if you're in your mother's womb and something's going on with the mother and she feels stressed, so she releases the cortisol and the adrenaline, and she's having these feelings, and that goes in as a memory, and it's converted in an area of the brain called the amygdala, and that's converted from short-term memory to a long-term memory in the presence of these hormones. Well, what was discovered recently, although I've been using these techniques for a long time, this is only a recent explanation, of why the techniques are so effective. If you can convert in the presence of a hormone, if you can destabilize the long-term memory, which is what happens in the presence of these hormones, and then you introduce the energy of love. The energy of love releases a whole series of other hormones, and then, in other words, it releases oxytocin, releases alpha-thymosin, it releases, among other things, dopamine and serotonin. So these other hormones start to shift then the energy of anger or fear or sadness to feelings of love. And so when you think of the event that's coming up, and everything's a fractal, so this is a pattern that keeps repeating again and again and again. You know, and when you think of it, then you no longer have the reaction of fear, you know, or anger or sadness. You just feel present with what it is. You're just present with what arises, what is.
No more reaction.
So there's no reaction, and you can really just respond to the situation directly as is appropriate. So that's why I use the energy of love in a way that strips the charge from negative, contractive emotions and memories.
And that's where there's really free will, because some people are not really ready or don't really want to just naturally heal with that love. Because from my understanding, you're saying the love then heals and then we're free, and then it can be very quick even. Some people that have near-death experiences come back from these experiences and can heal a cancer, as Anita Moriani explained to me in the interview we did, and it's magnificent. Miracles can happen then.
Absolutely, yes. Well, many near-death experiences, I think, reveal that you're not only your physical body with its thoughts and feelings and sensations. Your consciousness itself. And when you know that through your direct experience, not reading about it or hearing about it, but through your direct experience, everything shifts. Then you no longer have a fear of death. You know, you might want to stay and enjoy and live your life, but you can be much more present then, because there's not a fear of death. And that's part of also what we do in some of the seminars, the opening to oneness through love. And people come into a realization of their own true nature. Then their own true nature is present prior to birth and after death. So there's an awareness of your immortality as a consciousness. Not as an individual consciousness, but as a consciousness.
Anita Moriani, that had this big near-death experience, is really, her story is buzzing throughout the internet and everywhere around the world because it's magnificent, and she's reporting now to feel invincible and to walk in life that way, but not as invincible, but just as invincible.
Yeah, well, then she's in touch with the ever-present oneness. That is her essential nature, and of course that can't be touched, by the forms that arise from it. The forms arise from it, and they subside into it. So she knows the truth of who we could say she is, but it's a word. It's beyond the individual she, and yet her soul is still operating. Bringing that unified oneness through this individuated form called her, whatever she is. So her soul is sort of mediating.
We're having a lot of noise. Sorry, my beautiful co-creators, but I think it's okay because this mic is really unidirectional. So we're, her soul is...
her soul is mediating this. Anyway.
Yeah, but I could feel it. I could feel the power and the magnificence of once we're really in that love, embodying it, being that, feeling immortal. How then this energy could even make disappear some diseases or some things that are not love.
Well, again, the essential. The key to recognizing how to deal with disease is to recognize that it's a perceived sense of separation.
It's perceived sense. It's not even separation.
A separation, because separation is always an apparency. It's not real. You know, the nature of everything is that it's all interconnected, and it's an aspect of the one. So any sense of separation is a perception, and that's what beliefs are mostly. Beliefs, do you believe in Santa Claus? Well, I have faith. Do you believe in God? Well, I have faith in God. And when Jung was asked if he believed in God, he said, no, I know God. That's direct. Another way of looking at it is, do you believe that you have a thumb? No, I don't believe I have a thumb. I know I have a thumb. There's a difference between a belief and direct knowing. And so that's what we're focusing on, is the direct knowing. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. This is very, very exciting. Is there something else that you would like to add to this conversation that you think is important for all those juicy co-creators out there, wherever they're at in their life, to hear, know, feel?
Well, just know that there is only one, appearing as many, revealing itself as love.
Whatever it looks like.
Yeah, well, love is the reminder of unity, of oneness, and it's also, the urge to merge. It's a felt sense of wanting to become one with whatever the object of your love is. So if you're loving pizza, what do you want to do with it? You want to eat it. You want to become one with it. If you're loving Source, what do you want to do? You want to merge with Source, become one with Source. When you become one with Source, there is no you and there is no it. There's only one.
Pizza is a great example, because a lot of people eating pizza make themselves wrong for eating that pizza. Then there is another feeling behind it. They're loving the pizza, but they know and think that it's bad for them. Then there is consequences. So,
well, they have conflicting beliefs about it. Yeah, that's why, and even more importantly, people do that with judgments, and they have conflicting beliefs about themselves. That's why the most important person to love is yourself. And in order to do that effectively, you need to forgive yourself for the things that you did that you think were unloving to yourself, to others, that you felt guilty about, that you felt ashamed of. And we have a process called the forgiveness process. That's a very profound portal to oneness. See?
Like the Ho'oponopono, to recognizing ourselves in others and forgiving ourselves, but also forgiving all that is, because we're one anyway.
That's right. That's right. So, I think the Ho'oponopono technology is a very good technology. It's, it came from an alignment. And, I think we have a way of doing forgiveness that takes half an hour that's very profound. And it's not forgiveness is not about the other person, although we think it's about the other person. It's because where does the forgiveness take place? Within us. So forgiving is about forgiving yourself love, forgiving yourself freedom. So it's about you. And when you have the intention to forgive yourself, you can move directly into oneness. That's the potential. The potential is there for you. Sometimes it's necessary to do it again and again, just like peeling the layers of an onion. So sometimes it happens just like that, and sometimes you have to do it again and again.
While being loving towards ourselves in the process.
Right. Totally, unconditionally accepting yourself as you are.
Beautiful. Well, those are great words to finish this interview with. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you, my beautiful co-creators, for watching, for sharing all these beautiful videos and message. We send you much love from Reims in France, the Champagne region. Oh la la.
Yes. Wonderful.
Much love. Bye-bye.
Bubbles of love.
Bubbles of love. That's right.